Curios. This is a game of bluffing, deduction, and area majority in which the players play the role of archaeologists. They will travel around the world collecting artifacts, but not because they want to keep them, those belong in a museum, but because they will gain prestige and, I guess, scholarly points because of that. In any case, you collect victory points, and at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points is the winner. How do you do so? Well, there are 4 locations in which the players will collect artifacts and their 4 points. Each location is associated with a pool of nice shiny gems. Each location is color-coded and has a card like the one that you see here, with these spaces that are divided in columns. The leftmost column has 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, and then 4 and 4. Each location is also associated with a small deck of 4 cards. A card with the number 1, one with the number 3, number 5, and number 7. You shuffle those 4 decks individually, separately at the beginning of the game when you set up the game, and then you draw a random card and you place it face down next to the location, or sometimes we actually tuck it under the location to make sure that no one looks at that card by mistake. So now each location is associated with a card which may have a value 1, 3, 5, or 7, but we do not know. Maybe they're all 7, maybe they're all 1s, so most likely a mix of things. Then you take the remaining cards and you shuffle them together in a deck, and then these cards are distributed to the players. So depending on the number of players, sometimes all cards are distributed, some of the times there will be a side deck. But the point is that you will look at your hand of cards and you will have some ideas of what might be under a location or the number associated to a location, because of course the number cannot be the one that you have in your hand. I know that here there is not a 5, which also means, and of course the number that you see there is the value that each artifact from that location will have at the end of the game. So now you know that the yellow artifacts are worth 1, 3, or 7 points, not 5. I also know that the blue artifact is worth 3 or 5 points, so pretty good. Not 7, but at least not 1. And for that one, I only know it's not worth 7. I have no idea of how much the green artifacts are worth. So of course it would be very interesting for me to figure out what other players have in their hand to get a sense of what happens here. Now, players start with 5 pawns. 7 are available in each color, but you start with 5 only. And each turn, in turn order, the players will place some of their pawns in one of the locations. When you place a pawn or pawns, you need to fill up the leftmost column of the location in which you're placing your pawns. If you cannot do so, then you cannot place a pawn there. So for example, maybe now orange does this, and then another player does this, and then another player does this, and then it's orange's turn again, and orange does that. Another player does something else, maybe so. And now, if then orange wants to place pawns here, then orange must spend 3. If he wants to place pawns there, it needs to spend 3 there. 2 would be enough. But then that also means that if somebody does that, now orange with a single pawn cannot place it anywhere because a single pawn would not fill any of the leftmost columns that are available. Super important, when you place pawns on a card, filling a column, you take an artifact of the corresponding type. When everybody's done, because players don't have any pawns left or they cannot place any pawns, the turn is over, and then we check for each location. The player that has the most pawns there will get an extra artifact. So orange will get an extra artifact there, white will take an artifact, black will take an artifact of that kind, and so on and so forth. Once this is done, each player is given the option or getting a new pawn in their available pool. However, in order to do so, they need to reveal a card from their hand, playing it face up. And so, for example, I decide that I want an extra pawn, I play this one. So now, well, I'm the only player right now that only knows 4 cards, everybody else knows 5. They know the 4 that they have in their hand plus the one that I revealed, and everybody has a chance of doing that or getting that extra pawn. At the end of the second round, the players get the option of doing that again for an extra pawn. And this is pretty much the general idea. You continue like this, turn after turn, until 2 locations have been completely depleted of artifacts. At that point, the game is over. You reveal the value of the card in each location, and players will score accordingly. If these are the artifacts that they have at the end of the game. This one is worth 1 point, but these are worth 5 each, so that is 15. I have a total of 16 points, and the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. So what we have here is a very simple game of bluffing, of deduction. Deduction is obvious. There's one card that is there and you want to know what that is, but also there's bluffing in the sense that depending on the cards that I reveal, if I want extra pawns, I may be trying to plant a certain image in your head. Or also depending on where I place my pawns, oh wow, I have, let's say, a lot of cards of a certain color, but I know that that color is not very worth it, and I start investing in that one, and the people don't have any hard evidence of why I do it. They may be led to believe that that is very valuable, and they may go there, and maybe because of that they get 3 or 4 or 5 artifacts that are worth only 1, and even with just 2 that are worth 5 somewhere else, I'm able to do better. So the bluffing element is definitely there. You may try to manipulate the perceptions, the guesses of the opponent, and you probably should. Which makes for such a rich and interesting game for something that is so quick and so simple. It plays in about 15 minutes, usually 3 rounds. It's all that it took us to finish a game. 15 minutes, maybe 20. I played it with adults. With non-gamers also, and I play with my kids. My 2 daughters are now 7 and 9. I also play with my wife. She's a casual gamer and she's not easy to please. Actually, as time goes by, she has become a harsher and harsher judge of games, and wife liked Curios. That is high endorsement right there. And the kids loved it. The kids kept asking, can we play more? Can we play more? Like, we've been playing for hours. Dinner time, kids. Just one more. So, definitely a family game. True, my kids, I maybe train them more than other parents do with their kids. They can usually play games a little more advanced for their age. But I can totally see even a non-advancedly trained kid being 8, totally, even less, probably just 7, 6, they can play this game. Maybe they won't make the best decisions, but they can play the game. Hey, there's not even any reading involved, so there is that. And it's just so clean, so simple, so linear. Yes, there will be luck in a sense, because you really think that things are going one way and you invest a lot on one resource and you get 10 of those, and that gives you 10 points, and somebody else has 3 artifacts and they're worth 5. But in a certain sense, if you complain about that, you really didn't get the memo that is not about the quantity of artifacts. It is about identifying the ones that are valuable, and that's pretty much what's at stake here. I like the simple area majority element that gives you bonus artifacts here and there, which again is 100% useless if you can't figure out where the good stuff is. So simple, very linear, but with some interesting decisions, and there's definitely gonna be some like what fun moments going on, people cheering, laughing, me slamming my head against the table when I realized that I collected a huge bunch of useless artifacts, but in a fun way, but in a good way. So Curios plays like a filler, probably is a filler because it's so simple, super quick to set up, super easy to teach, nice, fast pace, and yet a really flavorful, a really rich filler full of interesting decisions, full of fun moments, and a game that really you can play with anybody. So a lot of good things going on here. Curious, I liked it, and so did my family.